Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Joining me today is Franco Terrazzano, who is Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Thanks, Franco, for joining us.
Hey, love these conversations. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, we'll have an interesting one again, as always, when it comes to taxpayers and money. And federal budget coming up November 4th. Mark Carney, Prime Minister, delivers his first budget and a lot of expectations about that. But what are the three or some of the top things you're looking for in this budget?
Well, there's going to be a lot of noise around this budget. Let me first by saying that, right? Because you've already seen the Carney government try to muddy the waters, talking, oh, we're going to split the budget into operating, capital, yada, yada, yada. But it's going to be really important this year, especially that taxpayers cut through all the noise coming from Ottawa and look at one number, one indicator to show what's really going on. And that number is this: how fast is the debt going up? Right? Because we saw during the Trudeau era, those 10 years, the government doubled the debt, interest charges getting out of control. From what we've saw of the early days from Mr. Carney is that he's planning to continue the government's debt-fueled spending spree. So this year, especially, cut through the noise, look at one number: how fast is the debt going up?
Yeah. Are you finding or are you thinking that spending is getting out of control?
Oh, it definitely is, right? It definitely is. And look, the Parliamentary Budget Officer released its, economic outlook for the fall, and you heard the PBO in committee, right, using terms like unsustainable, something is going to break, stupefying, right? So, and that's from the government's own independent budget watchdog. And I mentioned the debt. Well, let's also talk about what that means for Canadians. For
Mhm.
starters, a baby born today is already on the hook for about $32,000 in federal government debt. 32 grand. That's what they owe Ottawa in federal debt. But it's not just the debt tomorrow. People are getting impacted right now because the interest charges on the debt are getting out of control.
So how does this like impact you and me and businesses ultimately? Like as do we see the fact that I guess we're going to have to pay for it somehow in the future by just more taxes being put up?
Well, it impacts us today, right? It's not just the future generations. It's not
Yeah.
just the unfairness of saddling people's kids and grandkids with this insurmountable debt tab, but it's impacting us today because more debt means more of our money today being wasted on interest charges. Okay, so debt interest charges are already costing us more than $1 billion every week. $1 billion a week. Folks, that's a brand new hospital that is not getting built every single week because that money is going to pay interest on the debt. Or let me put it in these terms, okay? The government is taking $1,300 from each Canadian this year just to make interest payments on the debt. 1,300 bucks is the interest charge hit to each Canadian, right? That's outrageous. But if you look at some other ways, you mentioned the business community. Well, look, this drives uncertainty, right? Because if you're an investor and you're looking at different places to put your money to create jobs, well, you're going to look at this huge debt tab in Ottawa and you're going to be like, well, why would I set up shop here? Because all that debt means the government's going to raise taxes in the future, right? So it scares away investment, it drives business uncertainty.
Um, do you think we'll ever see a balanced budget?
Yes, I do. I
Yeah.
do, right? Like I do think so. The key is for politicians to find their spine and do the right thing now before things get out of control. And I always like to say this: the biggest threat, if you're a government bureaucrat, or is not political ideology, it's the interest charges in the debt on the debt. And look no further to Saskatchewan during the NDP era out there in the 1990s, right? Interest charges on the debt got so out of control in Saskatchewan that even the Saskatchewan NDP had to close what? Dozens of hospitals, rural hospitals across that prairie province. So, look, eventually politicians are going to be forced to cut spending and make tough decisions. The key is to get out of the mess now before it becomes a crisis.
Hmm. Now, when you're looking at, say, low-hanging fruit, where are some of the quick and easy ways that, if you were Prime Minister, that Franco, that you could see saving money.
Well, look, there's the infuriating examples of waste, right? Like the government spending $100,000 tracking the birth, life, and death of a grocery cart. 100 grand
Important. I
studying.
guess it's important.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. How about this, right? Like, I don't know the first thing about farming. Like, I'll just, set the table. But I'm pretty sure the government doesn't need to spend 8 million bucks building a barn at Rideau Hall. Right? Like those are the infuriating, the silly examples of waste, or Global Affairs Canada spending $51,000 a month on booze. Like these are the infuriating examples of waste. But if the government is serious about balancing the budget, which it should be, fixing this debt challenge that we have, which it should be, then you got to go after the big things, all right? And the two big things we can get into in a second are the bureaucracy. That's number one, the bureaucracy, and number two is ending corporate welfare.
Okay, let's talk about first of all, government bureaucracy. How much do you think can effectively be cut from the government without uh, the regular taxpayers payer noticing any difference?
A lot, a lot, because essentially what we've seen is just government creating make work projects for bureaucrats, right? Like even the fact that the government is spending millions of dollars producing government podcasts that nobody listens to. Like so there's a lot of fat to cut. And another reason I say a lot is because like look at how much the bureaucracy exploded over the last 10 years, right? The government added 100,000 extra bureaucrats and ballooned the cost of the bureaucracy 77% since 2016. A 77% increase in the cost of the federal bureaucracy, right? So, we also commissioned a Leger poll to ask a simple question. Like, do you think federal services are better, worse, the same, right? And half of Canadians said that federal services have gotten worse since 2016, even though the cost of the bureaucracy went up 77%.
Yeah. What about corporate welfare? What do you mean by that?
So, corporate welfare, the term is when the government takes money from taxpayers and then turns around and gives money to select corporations, right? Think of like the billions of dollars that the federal government put taxpayers on the hook to multinational corporations like Volkswagen, like Stellantis, and even like Northvolt, right? To build those EV battery plants. So, look, there's a right way and there's a wrong way to grow the economy. The right way is to cut taxes, cut regulations, allow businesses to thrive, right? That's the right way to grow the economy. The wrong way to grow the economy is raise taxes, hike taxes, take people's money, and then give it to, hand-picked select corporations. That's corporate welfare. That's the wrong way.
Okay, where does CBC fit into all this? A corporate welfare or government bureaucracy?
Both. Yeah, I think it's all the above, right?
Yeah.
I think it's all the above. I mean, for starters, it's more than $1 billion a year that the CBC is costing taxpayers. And like, look, I would say it's corporate welfare. Like, just because you're a media corporation, like you're still you're still a corporation, right? But fundamentally, I think there's no money for this, right? There's no money for it at all. Come on, we're more than $1 trillion in debt. But B, and more to the point is I think an independent and free media system is a crucial pillar for democracy. But like trust in the media has gone down the tube, right? Like if we're just being honest, if we're looking at the polls, and one of the reasons is because all the taxpayer subsidies that are going to select media corporations like the CBC. And I believe people have the right to be able to choose which media corporation they decide to support with their eyeballs, with their ears, and with their wallets, rather than the government forcing them to the tune of $1 billion a year to subsidize the CBC. I'll just say this, like, in many cases, you have independent and private media having their tax dollars taken from them to support their competitor, the state broadcaster.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else you wanted to add, Franco?
No, I'm just going to say, folks, November 4th is the federal budget. There's going to be tons of noise. It's very important for us as Canadians to cut through that noise and to look at the one number that really matters, and that's how fast is the debt going up. And I'll add this, a little note to Prime Minister Mark Carney. To Mr. Carney, you got to focus less on cutting the numbers and focus more on cutting the debt.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much, Franco, for joining us today.
Hey, it's always my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Okay, that was Franco Terrazzano, who is Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us today.